Welcome back, everyone, to the StarLadder I-League StarSeries Season 3. We're back for the second match of the day. Another best-of-5 conquest format, bring 4 classes, 1 ban, as is very typical of this series of tournaments we've had so far. Every single league has had that. We just saw 6-0 completely blow out Orange in just a merciless way. Orange had no chance, came in with 3 decks that aimed to target Quest Rogue and got blown out. Next up on the match is going to be Stancifka versus RDU. Now, you've casted these two guys recently, you say. What do you expect from them?
Well, Stancifka's a guy that you could cast every day for a year, and I feel like he would probably play different decks every single time. So now you can't really put your finger on what he's going to bring. He's a very interesting character and just loves to play random stuff and make it work. I really hope he brings Warlock. I'd be looking forward to seeing that. But RDU, on the other hand of things, he brought a very control-heavy lineup to EU versus CN. Didn't do well with it. I expect him to abandon control entirely for the next month and stick to the aggro decks because they're better. And that's kind of what he does. He's a guy that loves playing whatever the current best decks are. And a lot of talk has been going around saying the aggro decks are the best decks. So I think he'll probably play aggro Druid and then like Pirate Warrior and aggro Paladin.
Yeah, I expect that to be the thing that he does. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a mage as another class, potentially.
Sure. Secret mage
rogue.
at the end of that. Yeah.
Sure, secret mage, rogue, whatever. These are all very much up his alley. RDU just is known for, I guess, dabbling in just about every single class, given that it has the highest win rate. Sivka, I think, is, if anything, the champion that could make a Warlock deck work in a tournament. I say that because it's been kind of his trademark class. In the days of Handlock, he played Handlock, and then later on he transitioned and started brewing all sorts of weird mid-range demon decks. And then, with the advent of Ungoro, tried to make Blood Bloom work. The spell that lets you pay some of your life for mana, so tried to make Doom work with that, draw a bunch of cards. It was really cool. So we'll see if he innovates in that way as well.
Yeah, I hope we'll see some innovation from him. He's the kind of player that doesn't really care what the people say is the best deck. He kind of takes that and is like, sure, and then goes and does his own thing. Whereas Artie is kind of the total opposite. He likes when people say these are the best decks, he's like, all right, I'm gonna study those decks, see why they're the best, to try and make my own little tweaks to them.
Yep.
So totally different styles.
We have the classes in. RDU is on a Paladin, Warrior, Druid, and Rogue, as we anticipated. And Stancifka, of course, deviating from the meta plan, is going to be probably trying to tech against those to an extent. Bring Paladin, Shaman, Priest, and Rogue. This is interesting to me because Shaman's been built in, and even Priest, actually, now that we're on it, and even Paladin have been built in so many different ways since Ungoro came out. This could be a very control-heavy lineup. It's not even impossible to see control Paladin, control Shaman, control Priest, and even Miracle Rogue if he thinks that's better than Quest, which I doubt, but you never know. What do you expect from him?
A lot of Miracle Rogue in EU versus CN. He had a lineup with these exact classes in EU versus CN that was designed to kind of be pretty okay, well-rounded decks, while also putting a soft target on Jade Druid with a mid-range Murloc Paladin, Miracle Rogue, a mid-range Jade Elemental Shaman, where the Elementals were only in there for the ability to activate Kalamos, and then Silence Priest. So I expect him to kind of be something similar to that. It was working well for him in EU versus CN. He'd made some changes when he resubmitted for top 8, and I think he made it to the quarterfinals. So worked out well enough for him there, and I imagine he's going to keep playing it. Maybe a little bit lazy to change it up on the flight back from China.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things, too, where the timing of the tournament has a lot to do with the lineup that they bring, because they're not really in a position to, rediscover what the metagame's going to be like in this pocket, because a lot of these players were in the EU versus CN tournament, which just ended, and as they flew back home, they're looking at another Conquest tournament to attend, and they're probably going to stick to what they thought was good there, since nothing has really changed in that regard. Now, if this is Silence Priest, and that would be pretty cool, Token Druid's notoriously good for it. If you play Silence Priest and you play up against a Token Druid, you're probably just going to crap all over them. So that would be something he could target. Yeah, it's...
I don't know about that one, man.
Okay, I think, maybe it's 60-40 in a decent matchup. I think that...
Maybe. It depends what your tech is. A lot of players are going to run Wild Pyromancers in Silence Priest. If you don't have a Wild Pyromancer in Silence Priest, you are gonna get dump trucked on, and that'll hurt a lot. So
Priest is notoriously bad against that class, like against that deck, right? It's just unable without the control package to make it work. But I feel like Silence Priest is one of the Priest decks that's had, some of the most solid performances that I've seen against it. You do play Potion of Madness twice in that deck very often.
sometimes
I've seen it a lot.
Depends what you're targeting.
Okay, sure. It depends what you're targeting.
So
that is true. You're right.
You can take it
Check it either way. That's right.
If you want to beat control, you're going to cut Potion of Madness. You're going to cut Wild Pyromancers. If you want to beat aggro, you're going to play Wild Pyromancers and Potion of Madness. So I think what you're saying is true in some instances and not in others. Stancifka, the way he had it teched for EU versus CN, he ran none of those cards. And he had 0% chance versus Token Druid if he were to encounter it. Yeah. So it'll be interesting what his feel on the meta is. If he's feeling that people are going to switch to aggro, or is he going to say, you know what, they're probably going to stay controlled like they were in EU versus CN. So I think it's really tough to say right out the gate which way he's going with it.
Yeah, that's a big deal actually, the teching of it, because I've actually liked the Silence Priest personally with the Tar Creeper. You play Tar Creeper, you play Shamblers, of course, to make with the humongous Razor Leaf some big walls. The earlier versions ran Sun Fury, which I think was definitely awful for the most part, and now they've transitioned away from those and trying to just set up some more taunts. It's kind of interesting. There's also the Lyra package that's not mandatory if you're looking to beat aggro. You can very well make do without it. So we'll see what he's got. But Shaman is banned regardless.
Shaman is banned. Yeah, the Shaman was one of Stancifka's most successful decks for EU versus CN. Just very light on the elemental package, running only Fireflies and Fire Elementals. And that's about it. The Water Spring Guardian as well, but then just Kalamos on the top. So it's the 6 pretty good elemental cards that are just standalone, all just to activate the one Kalamos. No Servant of Kalamos or anything like that. And then just the good Jade cards, so Jade Claws, Jade Lightning, and Aya. No Jade Spirits or anything. So super threat light and just controlled the board very well against aggro and did good enough against control to sneak wins in.
Yeah, that's probably the reason why RDU is banning it now. Like the Paladin from Stancifka could be anything, of course, ranging from Murloc to Control, passing by the mid-range list, which splashes some of the Murloc package early game. Either way, aside from Control Paladin, I'd say that these two other potential candidates are not very good against Token Druid, assuming, of course, that is going to be the aggro list, right, for Druid. If it is the aggro list, then this Paladin has or wants to be Control, like on the Control end. Otherwise, things get a little bit hairy.
Right, like all forms of Paladin except for maybe janky N'Zoth Paladins kind of get farmed by Token Druid. N'Zoth Paladin had the lowest win rate in the previous tournament, so a lot of people are gearing away from it, which makes Token Druid a lot better now since everyone was targeting Token Druid before that tournament, and then during that tournament, no one brought Token Druid, so everyone that was targeting Token Druid lost. Now Token Druid's on the rise again, so it'll be interesting to see how players adapt to that. Yeah. But the big problem here for either player, I'd say RDU's Paladin's a little suspect against the decks from Stancifka, because Stancifka likes to play Wild Pyromancers in his Paladin and techs that kind of help him out in the mirror. So his Paladin could be able to shut down an aggro Paladin. Miracle Rogue's typically quite favored, I'd say, against mid-range or aggro Paladin, just because the removal kit's so strong on the early stages of the game.
Yeah, so we're getting information that the decks were submitted on the 9th of May, which means these guys hadn't seen their decks yet, I think, in EU versus CN, right? Or was it early enough that they had seen it? I don't think so. So this might just be old list, and it looks like we've got the Sun Fury as an anti-aggro tech. As I said, usually not a card you want in a standard Purify Priest, but if you're targeting something, Tar Creeper, Sun Fury, go. And this makes a lot of sense.
We'll probably see like double Potion of Madness and at least one Wild Pyromancer in his list as well. So he seems to be targeting aggro, and RDU seems to be playing aggro. Frothing Berserker, though, one of the better cards in this matchup. You can set up a lot of situations where it's very difficult for your opponent to remove, and oftentimes in Silence Priest, they don't run Shadow Word Death or Shadow Word Pain, which means Frothing Berserker can beat the hell out of him.
Yeah, and there's very little that they can do to stop it. They need to find the removal right away, and sometimes you barely even have room to run it. Now, Stancifka has some really sick cards in hand, but Renault Radiant Elemental, assuming he runs the Lyra package into it, which when you see Sun Fury makes me believe that he doesn't, but still has the Cleric, hoping to contest those without the appearance of a War Axe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all RDU needs to do is kill every minion Stancifka plays while buffing his Frothing Berserker, and he should make easy Easy work of this game.
Yeah. Well, Stancifka will probably hope to just stall some of the aggression coming in. Oh, that Acolyte of Pain, not worth too much at the moment. You could wait one extra turn. Do you develop the Washer right away, or is that a bit too open-ended to taking damage?
Well, let's see. So if you play the Watcher, you're putting out a 4/5. Your opponent has the ability to kill it on board, buffing up their Frothing, or they could kill it on board with a Captain. They can play Cultist, upgrade the weapon, and kill it on board. Do you have anything else that prevents any of those lines from them? And the answer
Not
is
really.
no.
That's the problem, right? Like
Yeah,
you
so
pretty
you
much
just
have
do
to
it.
commit to it because the Tar Creeper is just as bad, if not worse, given that you're using up the coin to make that play, and then you just lose in the exact same fashion. While having the Ancient Watcher on the board gives your Sunfear Protector viability, silences, purify, all those cards become live as a result of having played that card. So I think just based on what's in your deck, you want to get that Ancient Watcher out as early as possible. And RDU will respect the Ancient Watcher, of course, wants to get that Frothing up as high as possible.
He respects the Ancient Watcher, but does not respect Shadow or Death at all. He could have chosen to swing first, then play it to get it at 4 attack. But it is not too often that Silence Police plays Shadow or Death. So he's taking a risk to capitalize on 1 extra damage there. Stancifka playing the Watcher on turn 2 also allowed him to save the coin, which kind of signals that maybe there's Wild Pyromancer in his build of the deck because he valued that coin.
Yeah, we also have the big problem with Silence Priest is precisely those hands where you don't have the humongous Razor Leaf and no obvious line of play that leads to a victory. And when you're facing down a Frothing, and especially in this case with the double Fire War Axe, I mean, this is a backbreaker. It's kind of difficult to imagine a world where Stancifka puts down a big enough threat that RDU can't simply ignore it and keep going. So Stancifka probably going to opt for a Powered Shield Divine Spirit play on a taunt minion and try to soak up the most damage possible in that spot.
Yeah, he can get a 3/10 taunt, but the craziest thing about Frothing Berserker is it's got 4 health and it doesn't care.
Yep. Yeah, that's feels like typical Silence Priest that doesn't draw the exact cards they're looking for.
Yeah, it can really struggle against aggro.
There we go. That's a card I would have liked to see a few turns ago.
Well,
all right.
Heroic strike that down and punch him in the face. Because they're lethal here, actually. That's one thing to consider, right? It's kind of awkward with the...
Well, double trade, yeah.
You missed the heroic strike damage, right? That's where the issues kind of come in. So I don't think there is.
Well, you can get that Frothing up to 12, right? But that's the problem, is like maximum, not the 12, sorry, but to 10. So you're still forced to trade your War Axe, and I don't think there's a lethal looming here, unless Reaper plus double swing, still the same problem. You're always looking at like 13, so you're always a few points off.
Yeah, each of the trades adds 2 damage to the Frothing. So yeah. 10, 11 damage Frothing. So you can only connect for 14, 4 off lethal for RDU.
Not quite enough.
He's gonna want to push.
He's going for the most damage possible on that Frothing push because he wants to make sure. Hey, is he playing around a fringe case of the 1/1s are getting Potion of Madness?
He's playing around like the 1/1s getting Potion of Madness, as well as playing around, I guess, some sort of ooze by using Heroic Strike in the War Axe instead of equipping the Reaper. What?
Fair enough. I mean, sure. At this point, you're looking for a way to lose the game more so than how to win it. But Stancifka is going to find himself a way to taunt up. He's got 10 damage ready to be soaked, and the damage distribution is going to be a bit awkward based on this. And RDU no longer with the lethal here, having to split his efforts around. Oh, man.
Yeah, the fancy play syndrome might have cost him a few percentage points here. What he did looked really cool. And it seemed like he played around a lot of stuff. But when you talk about playing around very specific tech cards that they may not or may not have, sometimes you accidentally play into random 3-card combos that they do actually have.
To be fair, though, barring a Ancient Watcher number 2, this whole thing is just going to crumble down.
Right. Like, I'm pretty sure he still wins. Just don't think the last turn was very optimal at all. I think it's kind of silly to play around so much garbage.
Yeah, he played around a lot of combinations of cards that are usually not in the Silence Priest list, I believe. So,
yeah.
We'll see what Sifka's running here. If there's any spell in this deck that can redeem him. Shadow Madness does not help because his health total is too low. You know, if he had something like 12 health, we'd be talking about potentially recovering. But at 1 HP, any source of damage just kills you on the back of a clear. So it barely even matters, even if you had the perfect card here off the Shadow Visions. And that is going to be the scoop from Sifka up against Pirate Warrior. Again, showing why aggro decks are so much preferable to those control decks and those slower decks. Purified Priest falls in a very weird spot on the spectrum, though. When you look at it, it looks like a typical Priest slow deck, but the truth is that deck can just blow you out very early. And it feels like the metagame is very much oriented towards these decks that have nuts openers that you just can't stop. And Purified Priest is as nuts as it gets for Priest decks.
Yeah, sometimes you get a 20/20 on turn 3. Those are fun games.
Seems good.
You win those ones usually. But against the aggro Druid, it's going to really struggle as Priest doesn't really have the best AoE that early. You know, Dragonfire Potion could come out on 6. It's usually not in the deck even. And, you know, Holy Nova comes out on 5. That's also usually not in the deck. And their minions don't usually start attacking till turn 2 or 3, which is a little late because at that point, Druid's already buffed them up crazy amounts and then killed you.
Well, speaking of crazy amounts, RDU with the double mark of the Lotus and the Firefly, all he's looking for is maybe another minion to make this push start coming, but Stancifka is going to desperately need to find Potion of Madness off the top, maybe pick up an Ancient Watcher, start getting the train, you know, the possible taunt train set up. Usually you do need to get about 3 to 4 turns of leeway if you don't get the really solid opener as Stancifka, and that's what he doesn't have. He's got nothing until turn 3. And even then,
yeah, he's going to have a hard time with this. Are you thinking about it, whether he wants to use the Innervate or not? I'd like to see him hold it. He can get a lot of value later on with innervating out either big minions or, you know, innervating buffs post the living mana turn. So I'd like to see Firefly coin Firefly. You can still develop your minion next turn with patches and get the buff on all 3. So you don't really lose out on any value. You just also get a safe Innervate, which is nice.
Yeah, you also have to be very quick in the matchup, though. That's one of those scary things about Purified Priest, that once it sets up the taunt wall, especially since you've seen Sun Fury last turn, like you're not going to go through 13 health and have some leftover afterwards very often. It's kind of difficult to nail that. You need very specific setups to do that, and you just need to kill the Priest. You know, just go get him. Get him before they actually taunt up.
All right, play all the 1/2s for sure. Plays around Potion of Madness because they're 1/2s and they don't kill each other when get attacking each other.
All right, looks like we're just going to go all in on the push, and I think this is the way you wanted to play this matchup. Usually, if you have the opportunity to do that and you haven't seen Ancient Watcher, there is nothing on turn 3 the Priest is going to do that's going to crush you. No Potion of Madness. You've just got this, honestly. They can't use their potions. They can't use their removal. You're probably just jamming everything face repeatedly. Your worst nightmare is Humongous Razor Leaf into like a Shambler, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the way RDU played this curve.
Yeah, just jamming it.
Well, I mean, like, we could have done a similar amount of damage without having to commit as many resources as we did. I think the Innervate timing was inopportune, and we could have saved it just in case we draw a 5-drop or something next turn.
So Stancifka here too, like if you're RDU, you're putting him on a very different range than, you know, Northshire Powered Shields and stuff. So you're assuming his hand is maybe filled with Powered Shield, Cabal Talon Priest, Humongous Razor Leaf ×2, Divine Spirit, all those pieces that work well in combo situations. But if you don't give them time to combo them, that could be good. So RDU right now, his biggest nightmare is, again, that Shambler. If that Shambler comes down, that's 8 damage. You're going to have to allocate places you don't want them to go, and then suddenly you're stalled if there's a second taunt on the back of it. Sun Fear Protector, also a big worry. But for now, Stancifka is with complete air again.
Yeah, he's just dead on board. And, you know, that's why Aggro Druid's such a good deck, is if you're not playing a deck that kind of interacts with the board during the first 3 turns, you're going to die by turn 3 or 4, which that kind of blows.
Yeah, but that's kind of the thing is his deck, I feel, is well teched too to be Druid with the Potion of Madness and everything. I think that's okay. But unfortunately, the draw is just not lining up. You know, he doesn't find the silences to go with anything. Couldn't get any attacks, couldn't get any taunts when they mattered. And that's one of the big drawbacks of Priest right now, is that aside from Dragon Priest, which is very Just a value generation deck. A lot of the decks that Priest plays have these combo pieces that fit together, but the games last so little, amount of time compared against aggro decks, you just don't have time to get those pieces.
That's a
which
good
is
curve.
Good. It's insane.
Priest
That's
is
nuts.
dead again, man. We haven't seen a Wild Pyromancer yet from Stancifka. We've only seen one Potion of Madness. This Priest deck is not teched to deal with aggro. And RDU has all aggro decks, and we're experiencing why Priest is not great versus them. Trying to react to them and not having the specific tools necessary.
Yep.
Just going to cause death over and over again. So this is going to be a 3-0 win for RDU on the back of aggro, just smorking down decks not fitted to beat aggro. And the reason why Stancifka has queued up the Priest all 3 times is because the Priest is his deck that's probably the most difficult to win with against aggro. Deck lists are not revealed in this tournament, and he doesn't want to give information to all of our friendly other competitors watching the stream currently.
RDU here is going to get himself a good trade. Now, he's exposing himself to Potion of Madness if that were in Stancifka's hand. I mean, this 6-1 is vulnerable to a really good trade. If Stancifka picks it up, that could be the game changer, but without it, it'd be tough.
And that's Pyromancer.
Yeah, he at least finds it. And he's going to get to kill the 6-1 that's on the board.
Well, I don't know if he can't afford to Wild Pyromancer. If he does it now,
it's too early,
right? Too early, right? Yeah.
It's way too early for now.
It's not enough value. So even though he has the tech card that he needs for the matchup, he just can't play it yet. And he's just saying, well, I hope there's no Kings or Cold Light Seer or Mega Sword that gives a resilience buff to these minions. Otherwise, I'm just going to die.
Yep. And that's pretty much the biggest fear you have as Stancifka here is any play that's in that deck. So double Cold Light Seer, double Gentle Mega Sword, that's 4 cards you don't want to see. If there's 2 Kings instead of the 1, then suddenly that's 6 outs for your opponent to get away from that Wild Pyro clear. And Stancifka just looking dreadful, looking for Potion of Madness off the top, use it with the Pyromancer to start cleaning up. But it's going to require way more time, I think, on average, than he's got. Well, if you RDU, you could just help yourself to some of that King's value, but developing more boards seems pretty good, given that you haven't seen anything from your opponent that indicates he's running removal. Man, that's a Murloc curve.
The Murloc on this board does kind of like 3 damage, right? You get the 1 immediate, and that does 2 if it lives. The King's does 4, both set up lethal, so he opts to go wider on the board and give his minions more resilience rather than just making 1 more resilient, because the damage 3 to 4 doesn't matter when you have this much on board. Both set up lethal.
I guess it plays around Shadow or Death subtly, if there's a death, maybe. I mean, Death, Potion of Madness, he attacks with the Acolyte into the 2/3, potions 1, sends it elsewhere. Okay, we'll give him. He's played around stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah. And the Murloc's just better than the Kings there.
Yep.
But Stancifka looking for a miracle. Needs to play.
He can use the Inner Fire on the Acolyte to trade up into the 7/3 and draws 2 cards in the process. Could pick up a Silence. That's also another possibility. It's not over, but it's not looking particularly good for him. Silence off the top. Let's see. Power Shield. And that is neither of these.
It's 11 damage for RDU.
Not quite there, but we're so close that we're effectively already at the point where we're winning this. Does Stancifka have any out in the deck? Now, Shambler can't even copy anything. There's no taunt aside from Tar Creeper.
Keeps him alive, technically, if he finds it, but it's typically not in the deck, and doesn't find anything, and that is going to be a 3-0 sweep. All games ending before turn 6.
Pretty much, yeah. This is a story of the current tournament meta, I think. The speed at which games are played, how much aggro is dictating the pace of the games, and how little chance a deck that is aiming to assemble combo pieces really has against those decks. So Combo Druid just showing how quick it could get on the board. Some decisions that were made by RDU to really, put the foot in the gas really early in that Druid matchup, when he went just all in on the double Mark of the Lotus turn. Could have taken it a bit slower, but didn't want to risk exposing himself to Wild Pyromancer turns where suddenly the board disappears, no follow-up to go with that, and then you get roadblocked by a big taunt minion. So just choosing the aggressive route instead of giving the Priest a chance. Honestly, Stancifka just had nothing. These hands just contained absolute air from start to finish.
Yeah, he has Wild Pyromancers in his deck. He has Potion of Madness in his deck, so these are cards he needs to find to have a chance in the game, whereas his opponent needs to just draw their deck. Any random cards from their deck, pretty much good enough. So now you can see how the win rates will line up to be Druid favored there. It's like Druid needs to draw minions. Their deck
any minion will do it.
Yeah, 20 minions or so. So they're looking for 1 out of 20 cards. And Stancifka's looking for the exact 4 cards out of his 30-card deck list. And if he doesn't find those, he just dies by turn 4 or 5. So you can see where the matchup will become the aggressive deck favored. It's just more chances to have success.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how the opening hands would favor the Druid every single time to get his plan together. I guess personal experience tells me otherwise, but this opener was just nothing that Stancifka could do anything with. So I'll give Druid the pass. He's probably the best deck right now in terms of consistency for aggression.
It is the best deck in the current metagame. And I was really surprised that it didn't show up too much until the top 8 of EU versus CN. And a lot of the lineups I see for HCT for Europe, most of the players are not playing aggro Druid. A lot of the players are playing very control-heavy lineups, and this is what's going to happen to them in HCT. A lot of them, like,
you heard it here first.
People are really just underestimating aggro, and they've been doing so for a month, and I've been casting these tournaments. I've been like, man, if people just played aggro, they would just win this. And last term I casted first and second place, both the aggro lineup. Like,
seems about typical, you know, and then we'll have a meta shift, I'm sure, when people will realize that in tournament play at least. But you know, we're like a third or at least halfway through the cycle for the expansion, right? Before the next one comes along, or well, almost at the halfway point. So they're gonna have to adapt quick because these tournaments are gonna keep coming in, and if people keep bringing these greedy control decks with combo pieces together, it's gonna be really tough to fight off the Quest Rogue, Parrot Warrior, Murloc Paladin, aggro Druid lineups. So on this note, guys, we'll be taking a short break before we're back for the third match of the day. Stay tuned. Go anywhere. We'll be right back.